they were focusing on careers and work. And, a lot of people are very passionate about building their careers and stuff like that. So that was nothing I was never passionate about. I mean, for me, especially again, coming from France, you just go to work for either just a paycheck to make some money, and then you use that to do what you want. But it's never like you go to work to build a career. That was never interesting for me.
You're listening to the Millionaires Unveiled podcast, where you'll hear the stories and interviews of everyday millionaires. We'll unveil their decisions, their strategies, and their current portfolio allocation. Now to your hosts, Clark Sheffield and Jace Mattinson.
Welcome back to another episode of the Millionaires Unveiled podcast. This is episode number 186. Clark, how's it going? What's going on in your world?
Good. We just came back from Costco, and as I walked in, this is funny because we were just talking about this right before, I saw they were selling AirPods right at the front of the store. They're $129 for the old ones. I can't remember. What are they for the new ones? Like $180, $169, $170 or something? That. And I like turned to my wife. I'm like, man, that was like some of the best $100 I could have spent is that pair of AirPods when I first got a pair a couple of years ago. And then you happened to send me this interesting blurb about AirPods.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That was funny.
I mean, just that business unit alone in Apple's organization is, AirPod alone. I mean, it's over $10 billion in revenue and climbing. And just put that in perspective. I mean, that's more revenue than Twitter, Snapchat, Adobe, several large companies that we use products for every single day. And just that part of Apple's business is that big. It's just mind blowing.
Yeah, right. Like on one chart we saw the AirPods are making more money than Uber. On the other one, Uber was just slightly ahead of AirPods. So it seems like they're pretty close, at least on a couple sites that we checked. But I mean, yeah, for one little pair of headphones, it is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, they definitely have a massive part of the market share, and gets into another discussion maybe for another time of, what does role of big tech and especially the FANG companies and how they put footholds in our lives. And I mean, it's almost like you can't deal without any of their products. And is that good or bad, or what does that have for the long-term effects for, our country and our world and whatnot? But interesting thing about just that little piece of business for Apple is that large. And it continues to grow. I mean, Apple continues to grow and continues to grow their stock price.
Right,
I'm sure it'll keep going, and they keep coming out with innovative products. So this week's episode, we have Mr. Nomad. He is French. He's been traveling full-time since 2018. He's embraced the slow travel lifestyle with his wife. His net worth is $1.2 million, with about 65% in equities and 20% in real estate, and the rest in cash. Super good episode with him about how he was able to essentially leave and travel and do the things that he really wanted to do on what some might consider, a lower net worth, to be able to cash out and do that. We've had a few guests on the show that have expressed interest in retiring, but what is that number for them? And so we talked to Mr. Nomad about how he felt comfortable, around just over $1 million to be able to do that. Last week we had Adam, 29 years old, from Poland, but lives in Canada now. He worked in sales and has a net worth about $400,000. And, like we've had several on our show, they're not quite there, but well on their way. It'll be fun to track Adam over the years as his net worth continues to grow. Clark, we added a new element to our website with the speak pipe, and we got a great one in. And so let's play that from Mike today.
Hey, your guys' show is just life-changing. I just wanted to take a quick second to let you know that it has put me on a path I didn't know that I could get on. For years, I was, in the Army, throwing some money at the TSP, some other IRAs, and it just never felt like I was getting anywhere. I just saw this retirement coming, but 20, 30 years away. And just listening to your show has given me the confidence to, frankly, start investing in some real estate. And in the last 18 months, it's just completely transformed my life. I've always been diligent at saving, throwing money at the market, but now I have 5 houses in Oklahoma and more to come. And I've gone from thinking I'll retire when I'm 65 to thinking maybe this is doable by the time I'm 45. So just want to say hats off. This is great. I love listening to the show.
Appreciate that from Mike. If you want to leave a comment or a question for a millionaire, go to Ask a Millionaire tab. You can go ahead and engage online with our millionaires, ask them questions about things they might have shared on the podcast, or maybe you have questions that follow up from our earlier episodes. Appreciate those that have already done so. We definitely hope to kind of create a little bit more of an environment where you can interact. We've had lots of requests for that. Definitely have some additional things coming out with our website and the Millionaires Unveiled brand, and we're super excited for those. We'll unveil in the future. But let's talk real estate real quick. Real estate's super hot right now. If you've got a deal, send us an email, millionairesunveiled@gmail.com. We'll definitely pay a finder's fee for that. Also, if you're interested in investing, we're always looking for new investors as well. Send us an email and we'll get on the phone, kind of walk you through the process. I think that's it for housekeeping. So without any further delay, let's get into the episode with Mr. Nomad. Mr. Nomad, you want to just give us a little about your background and what you're up to now?
Yes. So first of all, thanks guys for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you. So I am French, and my wife, which is American, and I are currently in our 30s. And we have become full-time travelers since 2018. Before that, we've been working, and we've met in Silicon Valley in California, in San Francisco, where I've been spending the last 10 years of my life. Yeah, and then through our common love for travel, we decided that it was time for us to travel, start exploring the world, and embrace slow travel.
Wow, that's pretty remarkable. And I know we're excited to get into your story and what you're up to now. But before we do, what is your net worth today?
So right now it's 1.2 million.
And how is that broken up?
So it is broken up in three main categories. So there is our portfolio, which is about 65%, investment, real estate, which is about less than 20%, 17%, and the cash, which is the rest.
And the money that's invested, is that in bonds, mutual funds, stocks? Is that in retirement accounts, or is that all taxable accounts? How's that divided up?
Yeah, so it's mostly 80% taxable, 20% non-taxable. And then it's mostly 70% stocks, 30% bonds. And we like the low-cost index funds approach. So that's what we're investing into. Mostly the VTI and VXUX.
Okay. And the real estate, is that paid for real estate in the United States?
Yes.
Okay, and so you just collect rental income on a paid for property, or two, or is it just one, or?
Two.
Two? Okay, cool. And those are paid off, no mortgage or anything?
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow, that's pretty remarkable. So let's back up here just a little bit. You're at 1.2, you're in your late 30s, you've essentially retired, traveling the world on, living a minimalistic lifestyle and a lifestyle by design. At what point did you start this journey in your mind saying that, hey, at some point in my 30s or late 30s or whatever it was, I'm going to walk away from full-time work and live on the nest egg that I built and start traveling?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So I think it all started when I met my wife. So it was back in 2016. And that's where, as I said, I grew up in France. And for me, having, 5-6 weeks of vacation each year, travel is kind of part of your life. But moving to the US, that was very, very different. Once I met my wife, though, which was also from California and also was really into travel and that travel bug, that's where we really realized, let's try to travel. And our initial plan was just to travel for a year and just take a break from work. But as we started looking into the specifics, the tactics, and how much money do we need to save and all of that, that's where we're starting to stumble into that concept or movement, which is called the financial independence, retire early. And we've met people that were basically traveling indefinitely. So that from there we started digging into the rabbit hole about the movement and the tactics, how to invest your money and all of that.
So was it her, or was it you, or both, or who was pushing it?
It came up. Yeah. So I think I remember we were just going on a hike on the weekends and we were discussing that. What do we want to do long term? At the time we were still in pretty late in the dating stage, but we met each other maybe just a few months ago. And so we were discussing those conversations about long-term plans. So I think it came from both sides. Actually, she was asking me, "Oh, we should just do it for a year," and I was the one pushing, "Oh, why not do we it for 2 or 3 years?" Because I already knew that you can travel the world for a long time for less than what people in the US think travel costs, coming from a European mindset.
Yeah, so you bring up a good point there. Do you want to talk a little bit about that mindset of how the Europeans look at travel versus maybe a majority of us in the United States look at travel?
To start with, the income in Europe, and I'm just going to take France, it's much, much lower than the average income in the US, and especially coming from California. So you have less money to do things, and so then, and you have also more times to do things as well. So that gives you an interesting advantages in the sense that you can do things on the much longer term, which will ultimately cost less. So instead of booking a 2 weeks vacation and trying to check every site in 2 weeks, we are used to take 1 to 2 months vacation in the summer when you have plenty of times to take advantage of long-term accommodations and don't have to rush to do things out. So I think that was definitely one big difference I've noticed between France and the US. You have more time for your vacation, and because you have less money, you have to spend less, which usually trying to do more things by yourself versus try to outsourcing, instead of going on all-inclusive resort, you will probably just go for places and maybe go out for dinner or just cook some of your food yourself. So you're a bit more of a frugal mindset in that way.
Yeah. Let me just jump back here. I want to keep going with that point, but let me just jump back here to your allocation. How much did you say you have in the stock market?
65%. So it's about 800,000.
About 800K. Okay. And is that split between retirement and non-retirement accounts?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Awesome. So now just going back to your story here, you guys met, you said you started dating in 2016. You started full-time travel in 2018. But I mean, how many years did you work full-time? I assumed you work in a corporate job full-time. How many years before you started traveling?
So I started my first job in 2005 back in France, moved to the US in 2018 and give my notice for my last job in summer of 2018. So that's about 13 years as a regular job.
Okay. And did your wife work about 13 years as well?
Yeah, pretty much the same.
Okay. And when you met up and started dating, had you both been saving pretty well and investing?
So me coming from back in France, I think I was used to basically when I moved to the US, just by moving to the US, I think my salary basically increased by threefold, but I tried to keep my cost of living the same. Because I was used to, price in France. So that's already let me save a lot. I think from the get-go, I was already saving 50%, by just trying to live, by just having the essential and really, really being conscious about, do I really need that new stuff before making purchases? And my wife was, I think she was pretty much the same as well. She's, I don't know if, because she's, her parents are Chinese, and she was born in the US. I don't know if this is where she got that frugal mentality, but she was also not a big spender. So we are both savings, from the get-go.
So we usually ask this at the end, but I think it fills in right now. What is your range of salary or household income through your working life here? You said the salary 3x, right, when you moved to the States? That's pretty amazing.
So I think in Europe, the salaries are pretty low. So I think $30,000, that's kind of an entry salary. When I say Europe, I think I mean France. So I think I started with probably 30,000 euros at the time. And I think when I moved to the US, that jumped to 100,000 USD. So that's kind of where the 3x came from. And I think then when I left, this more than doubled. I was in the low 300,000 in my last job, through, career advancements and negotiation and all of that.
Oh, wow.
So there is a big jump there, but only I think only the last 2 years that's where I was making the most of the money in the US.
And did your wife have a good salary as well?
Lower than mine, but still, we are both working in tech. So as you know, tech jobs in the Bay Area are paying very well, even though the cost of living is very high and it's very easy to get into lifestyle inflation and not really save much. we were making good money. Hence our 50% savings rates at the beginning. I think at the end we were close to 80%. Because again, we pretty much keep our same spending, but as our salary increased and we didn't really purchase cars or we were renting during that time with a rent that didn't really move much over the past 10 years. I stay actually in the same apartment since I've moved to San Francisco. I've just changing unit within the apartment building for having a bit nicer place, but San Francisco is really tenant friendly, so the rent are pretty constrained in some type of building. So I was able to keep the same rent as well. So that has definitely increasing our saving rates over time.
Yeah. So you guys meet in 2016. What was your net worth combined?
So I think we started putting things together 2017, but I think it was pretty close to where things were. I would say maybe I don't have the right number, but I would say probably 800 to 900 at that time.
Okay, so you were just just rough number. So you were just shy of $1 million, and you've grown at about 400 or so since then.
I think the last 2 years, the growth of the last 2 years, which was about 200,000, that was mostly the return of the stock market.
Yeah. So then you start dating, you start talking about this, you find your common love for travel a little bit, and then you say, okay, let's travel for a year or so. Before that, was there a net worth goal or a passive income goal saying, hey, if we're going to travel, we think we can spend 30, 40, 50 grand, whatever it was. Was there a certain amount you wanted to get to? Like, we're going to hit this year really hard until we start traveling?
No. So on my side, I was almost like, I forgot that dream of travel because a lot of people, until I've met Mrs. Nomad, I think not a lot of people were focusing on careers and work, and a lot of people are very passionate about building their careers and stuff like that. So that was nothing I was never passionate about. I mean, for me, especially again, coming from France, you just go to work for either just a paycheck to make some money, and then you use that to do what you want. But it's never like you go to work to build a career. That was never interesting for me. But before I met Mrs. Nomad, it was really hard to find someone in the US that was sharing the same values. So the only thing I was doing, it was like I knew that the real estate in San Francisco was really expensive, and I was like, okay, I just need to save because at some point I'm going to meet someone, and that person will likely wants to have a home together and maybe a family and all of that. So that was kind of the focus, like just save a lot because it's really expensive to buy real estate, and then we'll take it from there. That was kind of the goal before meeting Mrs. Nomad.
So jumping forward, spoiler alert, you spend about $30,000 a year. Did you know it was going to be $30,000?
So we knew it was going to be cheap, and we knew people like you guys interviewed a while back, for instance, Christian Bryce from Millionaire Revolution. So those were some of the people that we've been following that have been embracing a similar nomadic lifestyle, and we knew those guys were spending 40,000 Canadian dollar, which is about $40,000 a year. So we roughly knew that between 30 to 40,000 USD should be what we should aim for, and we also knew that with our current net worth, we could generate that much money. But until you really pull the trigger and go to those places, you don't really know for sure. It turns out that year 1 and year 2 were around 30,000 USD.
So let's jump ahead here. How much did you have when you retired? About 1 million or 1.1 or so? One. Okay. So then you say, okay, we're going to go travel for a year, right? That was the initial plan.
Well, when the initial brainstorming plan, we traveled for a year in 2016. And then, as I was saying earlier, we stumbled into that financial independence concept. We starting meeting people on that community, either locally in San Francisco or through blogs. So we stumbled about the blog of the Mad Scientist, Mr. Money Mustache, which obviously is very well known in that area, James Collins and others. So we did a lot of research on that topic. And from there, we knew we could do it because of our investment. So we did also some reallocation. I can talk about our investment before we pulled the trigger and after we pulled the trigger. Because there has been some change there, but we put ourselves in a relatively safe place when we could generate that 30 to 40,000 USD a year and go travel the world. And we knew by that time that it was not going to be for a full year. Like we were both going to quit our jobs, and it was going to be our new life moving forward.
So how did you, I mean, the question I'm always curious about with people that I guess like retire early, right, and quit their jobs to go travel, how do you decide when? Meaning you were making 300 grand, right? About?
A little less, yeah, at the peak of my career, yeah.
And then your wife was making how much?
2/3 of that, I would say.
2/3, you said?
Yeah. So
So you guys are at about 500 grand.
Correct.
Wow. So
yeah, let's say 400 to be on the conservative side, but yeah, still.
Okay, 400. So did part of you say, hey, why don't we just work 2 more years and we'll save up another couple hundred grand?
Yeah. So actually, when I think by sometimes 2017, we did enough research. We look at our numbers. We knew that we have enough to the lifestyle we want. Yeah, we look into that. At the end, we were both ready to move on with our life, and we felt that we have more than enough to live our lifestyle, with always having the backup plan of, if something terrible happened, we can always go back to work and still get the same, those very comfortable careers. So yeah, I think we were just ready, and we felt like we had plenty. And even right now, after going through the pandemic and the market fluctuation and all of that, and seeing that we are still using less than what our portfolio can generate, and with also the large portion of cash that we have in hands, I think we feel that it's enough for us.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. So you quit the jobs, you say, okay, we're going to go travel. How did you know where to go?
So the first year, we decided, July 1st was going to be the day when we are going to start traveling. Mrs. Nomad had the ability to keep her job. So I think she kept working for another 6 to 9 months. So because of that, wow. Yeah, so she has, maybe back to your previous question, she was the one that, wanted a bit more, she was much more career oriented than I was. So she was like, oh, I can keep working, because she was working for that company, which was fully remote. So didn't have any offices in the US. So for her, she could keep traveling and keep her salary, which was based in San Francisco, which was a significant, as you said, it was a nice pay. So she did that for 6 to 9 months. Because of that, we had to stay within the American time zone. So we picked basically 3 months in Canada, then 4 months in Mexico, and sometimes in the US on that first year. After seeing me, enjoying my life and doing all of those things with my free times, moving from a place of going to work to focusing on my passion and the things I was really excited about, she decided after a while to quit. So I think she quit in early 2019. So after that, we are free to starting traveling in different locations. So that's where we moved to Europe and Southeast Asia. And also, as we travel, we like to slow travel, because we don't want to do that for a year. We want it to be sustainable. So, we like to stay in places at least 1 month at a time. That give us much more, not only it help us spend less and give us much more control over our spending, it's much more comfortable and less stressful way to travel the world.
Wow. So just give us a quick summary. How many countries have you guys been to?
So it has roughly pretty much 20 countries over the last 2 years. So not
20 countries. Wow.
Yeah, not a ton of places, for a 24 months period, just because we mostly move one place per month. And usually, like I said, we did Canada for 3 months. So there is places we will stay more than 1 month at a time. It depends on the visa situation. I think in the America, the visa are pretty generous. You can stay easily, Mexico 6 months at a time, and Canada, you can also stay for a longer period of time. But when you move to Asia, then some places you can only stay 1 month at a time. So
that was going to be my next question is how do you decide how long to stay in each location? So you try and just max it out based on visa.
Yeah, so we usually do a rough planning per region. So the first year, because of the constraints of Mrs. Nomad, we say, okay, we're going to stay in America. We were interested about Quebec and wanted to do a trip with our family. So it was an easy way for them to meet us. It's kind of in between France and California. So we pick Quebec for 3 months. So 2 months between two of us and 1 month with my parents and brothers and niece and nephews. And then we wanted to go to Mexico. So then we say, okay, let's go to Mexico. And then once we have the location, we pick the countries, and then with the country, as you said, we look at the visa, and then we look at the main spots, to narrow things down. But, we usually don't have the city until we get closer to, maybe three 3 to 4 months before booking our accommodation and stuff.
Wow. And when you were staying, you said in Canada and in the US and Mexico, where'd you find homes? You do like Airbnb or hotels?
Yeah, no, I think it's 95% Airbnbs. We like the advantages of long-term stay, and we've been able to get really, really good discounts on Airbnbs. I think we usually get 50% discounts from, the regular daily rate as you get to a monthly rate, and then we usually try to negotiate on top of that. So that has been performing much better than hotels. And we also like to live like normal life. So for us, we like to have control about the food that we eat. So we will cook most of our meals. We might just, go out once or twice a week. So having a kitchen for us is very important, which is what Airbnb provide us with. I think it's a bit more difficult to get that in hotels. We usually use at hotels for when we do our short getaways. In that case, we just go on platform like booking.com and just book stay for like a week or less. And that way we're less picky about the type of amenities we'll get.
So you said you negotiate it. Do you try and just book the month right on Airbnb, or do you actually reach out to the host and say, hey, I'm looking to stay a month. Can you offer me a better rate?
Yeah, so usually Airbnb will give you by default a monthly discount. I mean, the host can set up a monthly discount. It's usually anywhere from 20 to 30%. So that you will only get that from the get-go by just using the platform. But then we look at places, and we usually send an introduction email to the host, introducing ourselves, kind of our lifestyle and what we're looking from there. And then we always add about like, hey, we're going to be spending maybe between 4 weeks, usually sometimes up to 6 weeks. This is how much you are currently offer. Are you willing to give us an additional discount? And that has been working most of the time. We also usually, in order to have a little bit of leverage, we look at some of the, we will compare listings, similar listings, say, hey, we could stay at that other place, they offer us that much, but we like your place more because this and that. So yeah, we try to have a little bit of leverage as we do that. And more than often, because we also travel, we try to pick travel during low season and the space which are usually not fully booked. More than often, they are willing to give us an extra discount on top of that.
Yeah. So you said, just to get back to the numbers, you guys spend about $30,000 a year doing this, right?
Correct.
Traveling all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you have the 2 rentals that help cash flow. Otherwise, you live off of just money from the investments, right?
Yeah, I think most of our income is coming from the portfolio, the stock portfolio. I think that's going to be probably 2/3 of that, and the other third is the real estate property and some interest from the cash portion.
So of the $30,000 that you spend, what's your biggest expense? Is, I assume, housing, but if you're in Southeast Asia, what is it? Is it travel between countries? Is it certain tourist activities you want to do that you splurge on? What are your biggest expenses?
Mm-hmm. So the good thing is that we love numbers, so we do track that pretty closely. So I have a breakdown for you guys. So accommodation in our second year of travel was about 12,000. So that's roughly 30%. So that's our biggest expense. And then after that, the next one was our basically the food and groceries. I think it's about 3,000 on dining out and 3,000 in groceries. So that's about 20%. And then after that, we've got the international healthcare, which is about 3,000 for us, which cover us, like it's kind of, worldwide expat insurance. We have coverage because traveling the world, actually, you realize that most countries you can pay out of pocket. The costs are much, much lower than the US. We just have that policy in case, something critical happens and we need to be in hospital for many weeks. And, or we've got we have like for critical coverage. So that will be the next things. And then the last things after that will be, international transportation. When we only spend 2,000 because we are leveraging travel rewards and travel hacking to pay for most of that. So that will be covering pretty much. That will be. I'm trying to do the sum. 24,000 will be all of that, I think.
So, Mr. Nomad, where do you go from here? There's certain countries that you're still wanting to go to, and what do you do, on the day to day now that you're kind of in this slow travel mode?
Yeah, so if you take a step back, so one of our dream was to travel the world, and that's what I was mentioning as we were discussing our relationship, like what we want to do together, But then the other things we also wanted to do was to spend more time with our family and our friends. For me, moving to, from France to the US, which is 6,000 miles away, I haven't been able to see my family since 2008, more than maybe once every year and a half, due to much more limited vacations, as well as the distance. So I think those were two of the main focus we wanted with that new life design we decided to go with. So so travel is a big portion. We are booking between 2 to 4 months each year to spend time with our respective family, 2 months at a time, which something we're able to do on our first year. Our second year, that has been interrupted due to COVID, and we can dig into how COVID has been affecting our life after, if you guys want. But in a regular situation, our plan was to travel the world slowly, spend those 2 to 4 months with our family and friends when we go back home, and then use the free times that we have from not having to go to an office to work on ourselves and our passions, which for me has been right now building our blog to share our journey in regards to the fact that the cost of traveling the world is much cheaper than the cost of staying home, as well as focusing on life design, life or lifestyle design, when really sharing to people those kind of tips and what we've done to really focus on designing a life you love. So I think that's where we are. That's kind of our short to medium term goals with our travel. I think what we want to do as well, and that's why we have put some cash on the side, is to find a home base for us. And we are giving ourselves, as we started that journey, about 5 years to slow travel, check a bunch of countries or continents we like, and just try to find that home base that we can have with a nice community that we can have when we spend 4 to 6 months a year, and the other half of the time will still be about traveling around the world, since we both love traveling and all of the benefits you get with getting those new experiences and all of that.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So are there any new hobbies or things that you've been able to do now that you are, quote unquote, retired and traveling the world that you didn't when you were working?
New hobbies, I guess. Here in Taiwan, the first things that come to mind, we've been into much more river tracing because the summer are really, really hot. And we both love the outdoor in general and hiking, but it's really hard to hike. So we've been into this. I think, if anything, we've been expanding much more about the things we love doing, which for us, it's pretty simple and it's pretty inexpensive. It's like being outside in nature, going on hikes, going on, going bikings and exploring nice areas, as well as meeting like-minded people. As we travel, through the expat community we meet, so spending time meeting those people, and as well as the locals, but it's a bit more difficult sometimes because of the language barrier, trying to meet the locals, trying to see how they live and learn about each of those countries. Every time we go, it's, understanding people, the cultures aspect, as well as the food, and all of that together, that's been very, very fulfilling by itself. Just you discover new things and you have really good experience. We've made so many memories about the past 2 years that it felt that we've been traveling already for 10 years. It's very interesting.
Do you ever feel like that you're getting tired of it, or that you want to have a little bit of a change or a little bit more stability in one place versus another?
I think the slow travel is helping with the fact that we travel slowly, so it's not like we don't have the burnout that people might have, that we are used to have when you used to travel 2 weeks per year and trying to pack everything and just go to a place, fly, and then pack and being in a rush every day. So we don't get too much of that burnout. I think having a base, as I mentioned, is something we will want to have just for the community. I think finding a community when you travel can be tricky. So we are thinking by having a base, might be easier to have that local community we can connect with. But otherwise, no, I think, as I was saying earlier, every time you move, you have new experience, you meet new people, and that by itself is really exciting. Sometimes we feel a bit sad that, we have to leave now this place we like. We were in Ubud, before the pandemic, we were in Indonesia, in Ubud, and in that nice villa, and we met a lot of nice, very welcoming people. It's like, we were actually going to extend from 1 month to 2 months. We were initially planning a trip to Japan with my parents. As I said, we like to spend time with family, so I wanted to take them in Japan for a month. That got cancelled because they were, high risk of flying. At the time, it was just before the pandemic. So we are really happy to extend our stay in Bali. So yeah, I think the slow travel make it really, really sustainable.
Do you ever get bored? Like, what's a normal day for you?
Yes, so I think we will split, I'll talk for myself. I split my day 50-50. So with the week 50-50 between everything I was mentioning, like the exploration, the things we like about travel. So we will explore, we will, go out, try new foods, meet with expats or locals if we have the ability to meet some of them. And then the other half will be focusing on passion projects. So for me right now, I spend a lot of time on the blog, because I'm an engineer by trade. I've been building a travel tools to initially help us keeping on top of our budget and our numbers. I'm just basically developed that tools for to move away from spreadsheet and to give it for free for anyone that is interested. So that has been keeping me busy since we started, and then also spending more time talking with family remotely and all of that. So yeah, no, I have even though I disconnected from an office job, I still have a personal to-do list, which is I cannot get to. There is still a lot of things to do. So yeah, I'm not really bored. Always plenty of things to do.
You're staying busy, yeah.
Yeah, I think if anything, it's much more trying to be able to let things go and not have, like with the blog, we publish every week, and it's like sometimes it feels a little bit like work because I want to stick to a schedule. So it's much more like allowing myself to say, hey, maybe sometimes it's okay if I don't publish that week. Just take it, because we do the blog because we are excited to share our stories. We don't do the blog because we need to generate income from the blog. So it's much more like, I think, and that's also why I've been much more into mindfulness and, practicing meditation daily and all of those, developing those routines and habits to be much more grateful about the life we were able to design for ourselves and all of the freedom and flexibility we have now.
Yeah, I want to hit on that just one sec. I just want to go back to your insurance. So you pay, was it $3,000 a year for health insurance you mentioned?
That's correct, and that's for the two of us.
Who do you do that through?
So that is with ING Global.
And do you have a large deductible, or what? How does it work if something happens?
Yeah. So like I said, it's for catastrophic coverage. So the deductible is probably $10,000 for the two of us. So it's
That's not too bad, actually.
Actually,
I mean, it's a high deductible, but not crazy, right?
Yeah. No, it's not. It's their gold plan. They have different tiers. We could have got a bit cheaper, but yeah, we wanted the deductible to be, as soon as we know that we need to go to an hospital, much likely it's going to hit the deductible, and then they will cover us. So I think that's how we came up with that 10,000. Okay,
gotcha. So shifting gears here, did your investments drop much during COVID? I mean, they obviously did. How much?
Yeah, so I think we lost about 120,000 or something at the bottom of the market drop.
Yeah. Now it's obviously back up and more, right? But did that make you nervous?
I think I was okay. My Mrs. Nomad was a bit nervous, and that's why we were discussing, when the market was dropping and, in the middle of the pandemic and, you don't really know, everything has been, everything fall apart in the sense that, with COVID, like everything changed. So she was more worried about, our investments, not being able to support us and all of that. So we have a conversation and we decide, we can always try to, drop our spending from 30,000 to 20,000 because we knew that, we came up with a few plans to get to that number. Since then, things are recovered, and now we've been also in Taiwan, which actually Taiwan, cost of living wise, is right on that 20,000 mark. So yes, I think that's the only thing. We were having a conversation. We didn't panic sell or did anything. If anything, the only thing that I think she did was instead of reinvesting some of the dividends that was coming through investment account, she decided to keep that as cash. So then we had more cash. But as I said, our cash portion it's pretty large because we are thinking about getting that property at some point somewhere. And the fact that, 2008, we knew that the cash was coming, but we probably have 10 plus year in cash right now. So that's why I was not really worried about we can use that cash, and knowing that over time, the market will always goes up. I was not as worried. And this year has been very, surprising because I was not expecting the market to recover so quickly as well. So, it's really hard to read the market right now, if it's really reflecting reality or if it's going to, drop again. I think with our cash reserves, we feel comfortable to sustain. If you would have to drop again to the level it was at the bottom, we were still okay. And once travel can resume, we can tap into geo arbitrage. So that's the ability to go anywhere in the world in a country which has a low cost of living. I think the cheapest places we've been were places like Thailand, when we could spend between 16,000 a year for the two of us. If we will forecast our monthly spending over a 12 month period of time, as well as the beach side of Thailand. So Koh Lanta, which was a nice beach area, when we also spent pretty much the same budget. So we can still have a nice lifestyle and still live on half of what we're spending right now if we want, thanks to geo arbitrage.
Wow. And just jumping back to your real estate, how much in rental income do you net after mortgage payments or any other expenses? How much does that provide you monthly?
Yeah, so last year was 8,000 a year. So
okay, 8,000 a year. So that covers 8 of your 30-ish.
Yeah, I think
about
roughly the breakdown,
so.
It's like, so it's like 20K in the portfolio, 8K in the investment property, and 2K in the cash return, which right now it's not really good, as you know. But that's roughly the breakdown that gives us to 30,000.
Okay. So just the final question here, Nomad. You talked a lot about during our interview here about designing a life you love, right? And stop trying to appease other people or doing what you want to do. Talk to us a little bit about that. How did you discover, what that was for you? Why are you so passionate about it? And whether it's travel for somebody or maybe it's not travel for somebody, what does it mean to design a life for yourself, the life that you want to live?
Yeah, so that's something we thought a lot about, and I think it initially started when we had that conversation when we were hiking together and we were trying to say, hey, what do we want to do? What we are really passionate about in our life? And the first things that come to mind for us was travel. It was never about work. So we started figuring out, those are the things that really love. But then quickly after that, there was the first thing Mrs. Nomad starting thinking was like, well, we still need to have to go to work. We still need to, save a lot of money to do that. So as part of the life design, the first thing we did was that we let go of constraints and limitation, such as, that we don't have to work. I mean, like, you don't need to have to work if you want to design your life. There is way that you can do differently. And, you don't have to go to a 9-to-5 office job, for instance, if you want to, or you don't need to only have like 2 weeks of time off. You can probably design a life when you have more free time as well. So trying to let go of those constraints as limitation were something that we have to go through. So that way we can really design our ideal life. And then the next steps that we did was like trying to identify what's truly our desire versus someone else's desires. In our society, there is a lot of things to do for us about like, we need to buy a home and we need to own a car and, all of that type of things. Or we need to have a successful career. Those were not our desires. Those were something that in our head was like, society told us this is what we have to do. We know you need to buy the next iPhone every year and all of those things. So we totally removed that from us. And I think that's why we ended up about like our love for exploring and being immersed in always new environments, and our desire as well to spend with time and family. And then the next things that we've done is trying to come up with a vision, like how we want to project ourselves, 10 years from now. And that's where I think we started plugging. So basically we built a 10, 5 and 1 year, 10 year vision with like a 5 years mark check-in. And then we plug yearly goals to that. And that's where I'm mentioning wanted to have a home base. That's where our home base come into the mix. We did not have that plan in the first year of travel because we just went with the flow. But as we starting our second year, we started building that vision. Now that we knew more about the nomadic lifestyle, so we built that. And then, if you want to achieve that life that you love, it's really being able to focus and take massive action. It's basically like as we have your goals, like take action and do the things that you've done. So for us, before moving to that nomadic lifestyle, it was okay, making sure that our investment was safe enough. So we have to, I didn't went to those details, but we accidentally investing a lot into individual stocks through the company we work with, because they were providing us plans to own some of their some of their stocks at a very affordable price. So we built a lot of our investment this way, but it was a few stocks and mostly tech into tech sectors. So we're starting to take action to diversify from that to our current allocation, which is much more low cost index. And then it's like, we have to downsize our place. We have to get rid of most of our belongings that we have been accumulating over time. So taking all of those actions that will get you to that ideal life. And something we keep iterating on every year.
Wow, awesome. So thanks so much, Mr. Nomad. Really appreciate you coming on. Really good advice there at the end. I think it's important, right? Design what you want. I think all of our millionaires have done that in a sense, right? They've thought about what they want. They've thought about their goals. They've thought about how to get there and it's decided what's important to them. So really appreciate you coming on tonight. Thanks again. Net worth of 1.2, living on about $30,000, traveling the world. So thanks again for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks you guys for having me.
Thanks, Mr. Nomad.
Thanks for listening to the Millionaires Unveiled podcast with Clark Sheffield and Chase Mattinson. For more stories, investment opportunities, and information, check out our website at millionairesunveiled.com. See you next time when you'll hear from another everyday millionaire.